Hi everyone! My name is Meg and I am entering the Level Up LARP Challenge. I, a novice LARPer and crafter, decided to enter to try to level up some skills. The way it works is you select a piece, or a few, from Bergschneider, and then you transform them in some way to create a character for a LARP. I was super excited, so I took to Bergschneider and was instantly smitten with this one piece, the Leyland tunic. So, I purchased the piece, and while I waited, began the process of character creation. As a part of the challenge, you need to design a character. Outfit, backstory, personality, accent, you name it. In my opinion, there's no right way to do character design, but I'll outline my process anyway. I usually start with some vibes. Obviously, I got the Leyland tunic, so I had to include that in my design. I sketched it a bunch and decided I would take the sleeves off and use them as some sort of arm guard or decoration maybe, and then take the sides out as well and lace them up with some grommets. This would just make it a very versatile piece that can be worn with a variety of styles. Once I got the piece, I tried it on. I didn't love the silhouette, so I decided to try it on with a corset. I really liked how it cinched the waist, but I wasn't in love with the corset I currently had. So I looked for some inspiration for belts or waist cinchers and fell in love with the look of leather corsets. Now, I'm a very novice leather worker, so I knew this would be a bit of a challenge. I sketched a few shapes I like, but I didn't know if it was going to fit me or not. I asked around on the Discord and they recommended cutting the pieces out of foam first and trying it on. I did, and found it was a bit too small for my liking, so I adjusted to make it bigger. Yay! I also decided to add two things to my design, belt loops and skirt hikes. You can truly never have enough storage space at LARP, and the belt loops would let me hang pouches and swords off of my corset belt hybrid while still being a cohesive piece. Second, skirt hikes are generally useful and make for a great silhouette and look. And with that, my leather design was complete. Now, let's talk about my character. As I was designing, I started wondering, who would wear these pieces? The Leyland tunic had wonderful points and shaping, which felt very elegant and fantastical. The dark brown was woodsy but practical. The belts and grommets that I would put into the tunic were semi-industrial. And finally, I really wanted to use these antlers. I was also very inspired by the fabric of the tunic. It was so durable. I wanted it to be like fantasy overalls, a trusty garment that my character could put on over anything and could withstand all of the chaos her adventures might throw at her. That's what inspired me to use the sleeves for front pockets for extra storage and to mimic the overalls aesthetic. With that, I decided my character was a Fae-born traveler, someone who's born in the fairy realms but left one day to explore the mortal plane. She was an alchemist and a forager, hence the pockets and storage options. She would go from village to village and solve local problems before heading off to the next. And her name was Larkspur. Thank you, Fantasy Name Generator. I set to work on making the tunic. First, I seam ripped the sleeves off and the sides of the tunic open so it looked like this. As a side note, this stuff was high quality, so it was very hard to seam rip. Good on you, Bergschneider. Then I started on some embroidery. I had this idea that during her travels, Larkspur would notice local flowers and embroider them on her tunic. It was all going well, until then... Yeah. So I broke my shoulder, my right shoulder, and I'm right-handed. This means I had to have my dominant arm in a sling pretty much all the time. After a week or so of rest, I had a little bit of mobility in my wrist and lower arm, but crafting would be a challenge, to say the least. I had to figure out how to embroider mainly with my left hand. It took a lot longer than expected, but I managed to get the back of the tunic done in time. Originally, the front border was also supposed to be done, but hey, Larkspur is embroidering this as she travels, so unfinished just means she has more flowers to see, right? I then began cutting out the leather pieces and punching holes with the hole punch. I couldn't use a hammer anymore, so I got a handheld hole punch, and it worked fine. I also decided to try tooling for the first time. I found a design online that I thought looked cool and wanted to try Clever's home tool method of tracing it with a pen and then cutting it out with a blade. I did all of this with my non-dominant hand, so it didn't turn out great. I originally planned to tool the entire belt, but I kind of panicked after the first one turned out so poorly. Although after dyeing it, it actually turned out not too bad. Then I added grommets and rivets with a press and the belt was finished. Next was the tunic. It's actually hard to wear regular shirts when you have a broken shoulder, but luckily with this design I could just throw it over my head and lace up the sides with minor difficulty. Then came the undershirt. Originally I was going to make something pretty fitting with a high neck, but that wouldn't work anymore. So I decided on a camise top. These kinds of tops have very adjustable necklines and armholes, so it was super easy to wear with my limited mobility. I also was able to make it pretty quickly with some spare linen fabric I had. The pattern is just like a bunch of squares, and linen is sweat wicking and great for larps, and I added little poofs in the sleeve, just for fun. With that made, I finished my fantasy overalls with 2 pockets in the front. I embroidered the pockets with 2 designs. One of them was a circle, which I wanted to represent the portal that took Larkspur out of the Fey world. The second was a tree, for Skill Tree, of course. But I also had this idea that when Larkspur was growing up, she lived in the boughs of a giant tree. To me, these 2 symbols were important to my character. The tree being her home, her roots, but the portals representing her next adventure. Finally, it was done! Now it was time to accessorize. I didn't spend too much time on this, since other rounds of the challenge will focus on skirts and pants and accessories. I did have a shawl that I had knitted a while back that I had been dying to use in a LARP kit, which happened to match the blues on her tunic perfectly. I also wanted to wear a skirt to show off the skirt hikes. That and a little bit of poorly done, curse you broken shoulder, makeup, and she was done. I'm really proud of her look. I love the big pockets, and hopefully in one of the other rounds I'll add a matching belt so I can hang a multitude of pouches and potion bottles off of it. But for now, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Yay! Level up! Yeah.